Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on DEI and the EU AI Act in 2025, Driving Ethics and Inclusion with AI. We will just wait for a few more minutes for more people to join, and then we'll start. I have with me today my colleague Maaike. She's the CEO of Textmetrics and will tell you everything she knows about AI. And I have also here Simone. She is from LUB, which is also the diversity company in Germany, and she knows everything you need to know about DEI, gender inclusive language. So for everyone who has just joined, welcome. We'll just wait for a bit more minutes for everyone to join. In the meantime, it would be very interesting where you're from, so please let us know in the chat. Textmetrics, me and Maaike both are from the Netherlands. Simone is from Germany. Would be very cool to see where everyone's from today. So for everyone who's just joined, welcome. Welcome to the webinar DEI and the EU AI Act in 2025, Driving Ethics and Inclusion with AI. Today we will look at DEI and AI, and I have two experts with me. My CEO, Maaike, she will tell you everything about AI, and Simone, she will tell you everything about DEI. And there's lots of rooms for your questions. So just put everything in the chat that you want to know. There are also some questions for the audience between the slides as well. And please let us know where you're from. It would be interesting to see where everyone's joining from. And we will just wait for a bit more minutes to actually start the webinar. Okay, I already have some answers here. From the Netherlands and Germany as well, there are some people joining. Welcome. For everyone who's just joined, we'll just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes to actually start the webinar. Let us know in the comments where you're from. It would be very nice to know where everyone's joining. We ourselves are now sitting in a very sunny Netherlands, which does not happen that often. So we're very happy with that. And Simone is joining from Germany. Oh, there's also someone from Spain. Welcome. So today you will be looking at the webinar DEI and the EU AI Act in 2025, Driving Ethics and Inclusion with AI. Also some people from Colombia, but working in Germany. Nijmegen, this is all Dutch. Nijmegen, Apeldoorn. Also more from Berlin. Welcome all. I think in 1 minute we will start this webinar. Today I've brought Simone. She is from LUB, which is also the diversity company in Germany. She knows everything about gender inclusive language and will tell you all about DEI today. And then on the other side, I've brought Maaike. She will tell you everything about the AI Act as well and how to combine DEI and AI. Also, if you have any questions, you can just put them there in the chat and we will look at them. Also, if there's time in the end, you can also put some questions there. But we can also answer them after the webinar, of course. So in a few seconds, we will start. If there are more people that have joined, please let us know where you're from. It would be great to know where everyone's from. Until now, I've seen a lot of people from Europe. Are there also people outside of Europe? That's also interesting.
And I've been to a beautiful conference in Nijmegen many years ago.
You did?
Yes, really. So I'm happy that Sanne is from Nijmegen. I was like, oh, wow, nice, cool. Yes, always was a nice experience.
Well, so now it's 4 past. I think we will join the webinar. We will start the webinar now. So as we've already said, it's about DEI and the EU AI Act in 2025, Driving Ethics and Inclusion with AI. And today I brought with me Maaike. She's our CEO. She will talk about the AI side of this webinar. And we've also brought Simone. She's also from the diversity company, which is very cool. You should definitely check it out if you're interested in diversity. And she's the expert on inclusive and gender neutral language. So as I already said, we have also some questions for you, but we'll go to that after this slide. First, today's menu. We will talk about the challenges at work, how AI can make a difference. The bias in AI is also very interesting, of course. Practical applications, ethics, and the EU AI Act, of course, what you need to know. And just a little bit, we'll speak about the future, about transparency, accountability, and how AI is shaping DEI. So first, I have a question for you. Please mention, put it in the chat. Are you using AI for work? I think it will be probably most of you, yes, that you are using AI for work. It would still be interesting to know. Also, what kind of AI are you using? Also very interesting. You could put it on chat. And then we also have already a next question. What brings you to this webinar? Are there any specific insights you're hoping to get here? You can also put those in the chat. Mike and Simone can also read the chat, so then they can take it into account. And as I said already, you can also just have any questions, you can also put them in the chat. Yes, I see for now that only people mention yes, that they're using AI. Not a big surprise. Nice that you're all here. I mean, even spam filters are AI, is someone mentioning. Yes, that's true. People are using Copilot. Yeah, that's a big one now. Copilot, ChatGPT, of course. Canva. Yes, Canva is a very nice tool as well. And people say that they're interested in biases in AI. We will definitely go into that. So, another question for you. No, this will be the last one. How do you feel about AI influencing diversity and inclusion in the workplace? For this one, you can just say A, B, or C. So do you think AI is a big game changer, that it can help remove bias and create a more inclusive environment for you, your workplace? Or would you say it's more B, it's helpful, but we still should be careful? Or are you more leaning towards C, that you're more skeptical if it can really understand the human diversity and inclusion? So please put it also in the chat. And then, now the floor is yours, Simone. The first question for you. What are the most common challenges organizations face in achieving gender diversity in workplace culture?
Yes, thank you so much for that questions and for the beautiful dogs. I'm always for diversity also in the office space, because I have two cats in my office, and as you've already said, we have been working a lot with all kinds of organizations, from big corporates to universities to municipalities, and they all face challenges when it comes to gender diversity. The most typical thing that we meet at an organization is the so-called bias. I mean, Clemens already mentioned it. Yeah, bias. In German, Verzerrung, quite interesting word, is something that is human, of course, and this is also something AI can help us deal with. We come to that later. But in our language, we have a very big bias, for example, when it comes to gender, but also age, race, class. So our language and also our mind, because the mind is very much connected to the language, and then our actions, of course, they are totally biased. And in organizations, people often think, no, we don't have biases anymore. Yeah, so everyone is equal here, and there are just no women who want to be in this job. And this is mostly not true when we look at their recruiting processes, because there are still big leadership biases when we look at the language of an organization which is mostly very much male biased. There, I will come to some words later on where you can see that. But this kind of mindset, neglecting the biases, is quite typical when we come to organizations. And this has also something to do with the second thing, that there is no real talent pool where people from not privileged groups are being attracted. For example, female networks, networks for people who are neurodivergent, for example, people on the autism spectrum or ADHD, age talent pools for people who are 60 plus or 30 minus, and attracting those talents with a special language. Yeah, this is something we know quite well from research, that every social group has a very specific language, and in the inner structure of language, there are 36 parameters you can work with. And of course, a person who is 30 speaks another kind of language compared to a person who's 60. So this is the parameter age, but there are much more. And so people do not look very specifically at those talent pools and the language so far, and they think, well, language is just a byproduct. That's not. Language is the filter to reality. And I always tell people it is the cheapest change instrument. You don't need big marketing budgets. You don't need extra headhunting, stuff like this, if you just work on your language. And this comes to the next point, the lack of female candidates. I think Michael will show a case later on where Textmetrics has attracted females by just improving language. I mean, we have done similar stuff together with SAP or with Randstad. We just adapted female codes and gender neutral language in job ads, and we had a conversion rate up to 30% better with females, and also the amount of people who applied to the job was growing up to 15% more. So you also, and this is the important thing for all people who say, oh, gender diversity is not important. It is important, but if you start with gender diversity, you mostly come to all the other dimensions afterwards, because you just work on your language. And the last thing, which I'm quite sad, I must say, is that most organizations I meet do not have good data when it comes to their workforce. Meaning they know maybe the gender, but they don't know the needs. They don't know the things where people identify with. Of course, in Germany, it's not always that easy asking for those data, because we have quite strict data security acts, and also privateness is also something. This is a quite difficult discourse in Germany, but we often have to start with a diversity assessment when we enter an organization, because we have to find out which minorities or which marginalized groups do we want to push, and where are you already doing quite good. So these four things are, from a consulting perspective, mostly to be found in all kinds of systems.
Thank you, Simone. Let's see. For the next, I have another question for the audience.
Sure.
How comfortable are you with AI tools suggesting changes to your writing? A would be very comfortable, B would be somewhat comfortable, and C would be not comfortable at all, that you just prefer to rely on your own judgment. So you can put it in the chat. And while you're doing that, I have the next question for Simone. So how can AI help being more inclusive, according to you?
Totally. AI can help us very much, because you must imagine that normally the human eyes or the human mind, they receive language, imagery, sounds, and so on, but we filter a lot. And when we read a long document, for example, a contract, it's more of 50 pages, we forget half of stuff when we are finishing page 40. So artificial intelligence has a lot of advantages because it never forgets, which word was on page 1, and it has also kind of big storage memory and mostly a wider we call it mental lexicon, the amount of words that are possible in one sentence or in one specific semantic sense. So there is absolutely, from my point of view, a need for a combination of manual and technical analysis. Yeah, you always must analyze language before you publish it, no matter if it's a posting on social media, if it is a job posting, if it is a sustainability report. I would love to read what our audience publishes when it comes to writing text, because text is not a text. Every text has different conditions of the specific text type. So maybe you can just write in the comments which kind of texts or communication interactions you have to write the most. And the artificial intelligence helps you to look at the biases. We've spoken about this before. The English and also the German language has a very large male bias. There are words like mankind. There is a word such as man days in consulting. In German, we have the word Mannschaft instead of team. So there is a big bias shifting our language to the male code, and this is not so attractive for females, especially. And AI can detect this, and also other kinds of diversity, such as race, such as disability. In Germany, there's a kind of a paraphrase when you say someone is bound to the wheelchair bound. This is quite discriminating because people do not necessarily feel wheelchair bound, because there's just the reality. And it is a very ableist view to put a person in that perspective. In the US, for five years ago, many teams in football, maybe you know this, they were called like red team or red hat, stuff like this. This is a very racist language, and we still have it in German, of course. I don't want to say the word in German because it's quite humiliating, but yeah, you should say Native American or person who is from the Aborigines when it's in other countries. So you should be specific and not be in the broader sense and not be discriminating. And this is where I can help you. Even when it comes that you have multiple channel management, for example, you have to publish something in different languages. I'm firm in German and English, but we have projects also in other languages who have a very specific, for example, gender system, such as French, Hungarian, Chinese. Chinese doesn't have gender systems as we have it, so you have to be very much expertise to gain a certain language tone of voice. And so I know nobody who can be an expert in all our beautiful world languages. So the artificial intelligence can help us, and especially in real time. So you don't have to look it up in kind of glossaries or in dictionaries. And the classical linguistic work can be revolutionized by using AI. And I want to show you that after the last question, to show you how time-consuming classical manual work can be.
Thank you, Simone, and thank you also for the examples. I think those are very interesting to know as well.
Okay,
and of course, I'm a huge fan of AI, so that's good to hear that it really can help. Then for the next slide, I have again a question for the audience. Again, it's ABC. What's the biggest challenge when using AI for DEI? Is it according to you that it's hard to reinforce existing biases? Or B, it's hard getting people to trust the AI and actually use these suggestions that it gives? Or C, it's hard to balance the AI automation with human decision making. So you can put us there in the chat. And in the meantime, last question for you, Simone. Can AI truly eliminate bias? It's a hard one, huh?
No, it cannot. So maybe Textmetrics can, and Michael can tell me and make me happy. But as so far as I know, AI can only reflect the existing biases. We cannot expect that AI does it, because AI just reflects our humans' judgments, our thoughts, our mindset. And as I said, we have to sadly admit that we still live in a very white male, so almost quite sexist way of living, and a racist way of living, and an ableist way of living, and also kind of Western worldview. We cannot expect that the AI is better than we are at the moment. So I would wish that this would be possible. Also, like getting some moral codes, some ethics into AI, but I think Mike can tell us much more about this, how Textmetrics is working with this. But I think together with AI, you can be far better in detecting your own bias. And then if you detect your own bias, you can be much better finding diverse training data, not just the classical data. I mean, when we look at, for example, Wikipedia, we just have 8% of articles written by women. Or if we look at German TV and media data, I know a lot of people doing research on them. We just have about 1% people to see there who have a disability. And in the German society, it's about 10%. So there's a total neglection of our diversity in society compared to the diversity in language, in fiction, in kind of data where the world is represented. And the gender studies and also the post-colonial studies, they have done much in the last years to rewrite history and other kinds of data, cultural data, social data, politics, and so on, to make marginalized voices heard. And then if this is all happening, then the training data gets better, and then the bias is getting smaller. But that means that it is a process, as all is a process. So fine. So you must tell me now, Leo, how much time is left for me, because I wanted to show some classical linguistic work to our participants to get a feeling of what AI can help you if you do not want to do all the stuff that I do every day. How many minutes do I have left for that? You must tell me.
Like 5 minutes.
Okay, amazing.
Does that work?
That's amazing. Yeah? So yes. I would love in the future, maybe for everybody who's also doing research on AI, or maybe a Textmetrics can implement this. Micah tells us later, if we can detect images. Yeah, I know this is very hard to image detection with AI, but we do it mostly in a classical way. We have a lot of glossaries, a lot of lists. This one is also for free. It is the list of the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, and you can look on racist hand signs, you can look on racist number codes, and this is especially important for racism, for anti-Semitism, and for anti-classism, as it also includes white supremacy, prison gangs, Ku Klux Klan, stuff like this. So I haven't seen a list of this before, but it's especially for the US. Yeah, so there are many things like we have in German or in other languages that are not represented here, but some things coming from the Germanic or the Nazi codes are also represented here. As you see, the Hitler salute, the hand sign, as Elon Musk did it. Yeah, should be should be definitely on your list when you are optimizing your language, and maybe artificial intelligence can do this. You can go on, Leo. The best guide so far, which is also for free, but takes a lot of time, is the APA Inclusive Language Guide. It's also in English, and it is for all areas. It's for anti-sexism, anti-racism, anti-Semitism, anti-classism, anti-ageism, anti-lookism, and so on. I put you some examples here. So in Germany, there's also a kind of discourse on body positivity. What do we say? Do we say übergewichtig or mehrgewichtig? In English, it's quite the same. An ideal weight or goal weight. This has a kind of discriminating connotation in it, so you should watch out for it. But this guide is, I think it's 60 pages long, and you see, I guess you see that it is time consuming, and really you have to be very language specific to get to know the words and to keep the words in mind. There's, okay, I must look in my text if there is ideal weight. And it takes a lot of time, so an artificial intelligence tool should have this list included, and I'm sure Textmetrics has also lookism included, so that you would find that automatically, which is a total great benefit. Okay, we
Yes.
can look at in the next one. Yeah, this is amazing that you have it, because this takes so much time. We had a lot of customers from the IT sector, and they had systems. They were called master and slave system, or black and white list. Maybe you know that as well. These are racist terms. So this is what Textmetrics would show you, but you can also look it up in the inclusive naming initiative. And if you watch out for those lists, you will also see they are quite small. If you just have like 50 terms, or you have 100 or 200 terms, this is not enough for the whole language representation. So this is also, I think, a quite big advantage from an AI tool, that there are tons of words stored. And maybe Mike can say something later how many words are being represented in word lists of what Textmetrics uses. This is something that would really, really interest me for our research. As I have to look at my watch here, we can go on, and then gonna hear what Mike is to say. Yeah, this is just for the ones who are interested into fiction, especially for translators, German, English representation, and English, German translation back from two wonderful colleagues of mine. It's also for free tool. They didn't get funding for it, so I think it's a crowdfunding platform, Macht Sprache, and you see there are a lot of terms that are culture specific, such as Allmann. In German, there is no real expression in English, and here you see some examples and how it is, not in a discriminating way. Okay, we just go on to the last, Leo, and then I will go to Mike. Exactly, we just go, the next. Sorry. Then exactly, no, sorry, one back.
One back.
Yeah, fine. The rest is for everyone who wants it. I can send the slide, or Leo, she will do it. Wonderful. I wanted to say one of my favorite projects at the moment, this so-called it's Penning AI. Maybe you've heard it in the German news. They talk a lot about it. It can detect hate speech, and you can check it out, but just for 89 languages so far. But you can see what I added. I added the word sentence "Du bist ein Spast," which is absolutely discriminating ableist language, coming from also the days of the NS ideology, discriminating people with those kind of illnesses. And you see that this kind of AI uses legal assessments and checks all kinds of laws in Germany if there is a possibility that this is a discriminating form or discriminating phrase, and it even shows you the paragraphs. For example, here it's 185 Strafgesetzbuch, so that you can also go and hand in a sue. So this is really empowering when it comes to hate speech, and especially females in the web are totally facing hate speech. So this is a very cool project, working with a lot of texts. So this was my first look in, and now you will see what you can gain with using AI.
Thank you so much, Simone.
Okay.
Yeah, so for everyone, Simone has already mentioned it a few times, Textmetrics. We will not go into every part of it, but Micah will already show you quickly how the D&I module looks in our software. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Leo and Simone, for your inspiring presentation. I think there's indeed a lot of overlap that I can relate to in what you're saying. And briefly about our technology. So as you all can see, this is our dashboard showing a lot of different functionalities on the right side to actually control what has been generated. This could be a text that you write yourself or that has been pre-generated by a ChatGPT or other LLM model, or a text that you generate via our own model, which is also based on OpenAI. However, that is not the magic. The magic actually happens by controlling and double cross-checking what you have written in this text, and if that is indeed free of bias. So one of the parts that we can control and check on is the gender bias. And I think a lot of people, when they're writing a sentence, and I think Simone mentioned also a few examples, unintentionally, we do that, right? We relate to a certain wordings as being more female or a more male tone of voice. So the example, like I'm looking for a mechanic. If you look at historical data, then probably you would relate to a more, male tone of voice. But why should not a mechanic can also be a female? So what we do is to actually check those nuances in a text, and we can indicate if we push the button of the eye to look for wordings in the text that relate to a more male or female tone of voice. So here you can see where the light bulb hits the words. It actually shows that you can change that word around and change it around for a more feminine tone of voice. And then you can immediately replace it. But as being the human here writing the text, it's also your responsibility to be in control of what has been written. So if in this context you decide that you should not replace it, you can still keep it as is. So it gives you kind of a guideline to go through the text and check if there are potentially elements that you would like to change around. So the same with age discrimination, that here in this vacancy, it actually mentions that there might be parts that, like minimum of 3 years experience, that you might exclude a certain population in the people that you're trying to target. And then again, you can click on it and then it will explain why you should maybe reconsider writing it this way. So this way you can actually go through the text and adjust it accordingly, and then analyze it once more to determine, like, hey, did I really hit the more neutral tone of voice or more feminine tone of voice? And have I excluded any form of discrimination or bias?
Thank you, Micah. So this was just a quick look at our software. And now we continue with the questions for Micah, because I also have some for you. Now we'll focus more on the AI compliance and ethical use part of the webinar. So the first question would be, what ethical considerations should organizations keep in mind?
Yeah, so if you're using AI, it's definitely clear that it's definitely not free of bias, right? If you look at an AI, it's not human. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have a certain sense on ethics in that sense. And you can best relate to that if you think on where the data is actually coming from. So a LLM, for instance, like ChatGPT, is using data that is publicly available on the internet. And that is an interesting source because there's a lot of data there, but it's all being created by humans. And we as humans, actually from a historical perspective, there's quite some evidence that we are not really always free of bias. So if the AI is actually leveraging that data, you can kind of expect that it actually has a certain bias in what it actually represents. So it's really important to keep that in mind when you are creating your texts, that you check those elements. Besides that, it's also very important to determine what are you feeding back to such a system, right? Because where does the data actually go once you feed it back to a public AI? So think about customer data and personal information that you might give to the AI, like a phone number or an email or other forms of contact data or bank account information that can be really harmful if that becomes public information. You don't want that. So consider that as well when you're using such an AI. Where does that data actually go? And also, for what reason are you using the AI, and whom are you addressing? So are you keen to address everyone, the whole world, without excluding anyone? Or are you actually looking to really focus on a very small, specific group? So maybe then certain tone of voice would really make a difference. And that is also good to take into consideration that an AI would not necessarily think about those type of elements when creating content for you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, very good to keep that in mind, of course. Also very interesting, of course. I don't know if everyone in the audience knows, but the EU AI Act will go live this June. So question for you, Maaike, how does this act influence the use of AI?
I think it actually relates to a few elements that I just mentioned in my previous slides, that an AI has no ethical feelings or sense. So that is something that is really what makes us human, I guess, in the end. So the AI Act is actually ensuring that element by making sure that we use AI in a transparent way, that we are accountable in using it, so that actually the human is in the loop, the human is deciding on how it will be leveraged, and that it is indeed unbiased in what it actually creates or feeds back in the ecosystem. However, that does really require proactive assessment if an AI is creating content that is in compliance with the European AI Act. But it also means that you as a human really need to consider how you interpret that legislation, because there's no case law just yet. So it's still quite vague what it actually entails. There's a lot of texts about it. But eventually, I think, in my opinion, this is really the key, right? So is the use ethical? And are we as humans really thoroughly thinking about it when using this to publish certain data? And then, I guess we as a tool can really help cross-check that. So really measure the elements that you as an organization would like to keep in mind when writing a text. And that goes even beyond the legislation itself. It could also be certain elements in bringing back the authenticity in a text, right? Like our tone of voice as a company. We want to address our customers or people in a certain way. An AI does not really understand that. So the human elements, and that is also what the AI Act is kind of enforcing, is very important that remains there.
Yes, thank you, Maaike. I think it's very good the AI Act goes live this June. Also, if you have more questions about the EU AI Act, feel free to put them in the chat or just get in touch with us. And I also have one question left for you guys, for the audience, again with A, B, or C. So if AI could rewrite all content in your company, what would you want it to focus on? So would it more be making all the languages that it's used more inclusive and just welcoming a broad audience to the whole world? Or B, make it sure that the text is all readable, which will also make sure that you're reaching a wider audience? Or C, tailoring the tone and style to better connect with diverse audience? So it's more of A, inclusive, or B, the readability, or C, more the tone and the style. You can mention it on the chat. And then we will go to the last question for you, Maaike. How do AI tools ensure transparency?
I see some different figures coming in on your previous question, so that's a fun discussion, I guess, later on. But yeah, so AI tools, and I think I relate to what kind of intrigues me in what we do as a company as well, is that by cross-checking or using actually AI to cross-check and measure, you can really make sure that it fits to your company guidelines. So compliancy in the aspect or in the legal aspect, but also in the aspect of who do we want to be as an organization and who do we like to address. But even if those tools can actually help, and I guess Simone also mentioned a few in our previous slides, it's still the human that decides on how to leverage this. So these tools can help you to advise and to pinpoint the aspects that you should really take a look at least, right, as a human, to see, hey, and assess. But it's eventually you as a writer that decides on how to interpret that data, and if this is something that you, in the context that you're creating content or writing content, would need to adjust or reconsider. So it actually helps you to really come to a more thoughtful decision. And I think, as Simone also mentioned, there's so many elements to keep in consideration. And a lot we probably don't really consider when writing a text. And also, if you ask an LLM to create a text, in many cases, it looks pretty well, right? It looks pretty decent and pretty neat, sometimes a little bit too much. And that is the whole aspect. I think we're sometimes losing actually the human touch and the authenticity in those texts. So I think that is where AI can also help to pinpoint which elements to reconsider, but also to, at least also in terms of the compliancy to the AI Act, to make sure that the human is also in the loop, that we actually look at the relevant stuff in such a text, which is easy to forget and push the publish button in a second.
Yes, thank you. Let's see AI more as our partner for writing stuff, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I have one more question for you, actually. Simone also mentioned it already before. We have an example about our customers, our customer Arcadis. So could you elaborate on how it has successfully helped an organization like Arcadis improve gender diversity?
Yeah, I think as being female myself, this is a really interesting case to elaborate a little bit on, because Arcadis is a well-known brand and they're an engineering company. So if we look again at history, and these are typically, engineers are typically not female positions. So it's a very masculine kind of landscape. And they were actually very keen, or their head of recruitment was really keen to address more females. So really increase the number of female hires eventually. So what they actually did, they did not use our technology to create a neutral tone of voice, but to actually create a more feminine tone of voice in terms of the wordings that they selected. And the cool thing is that eventually they were able to increase the number of female applicants with 10%, which was huge, right? If you're looking at this kind of masculine like employer with only men working there, it's very hard to accomplish that. So that was really, it's really a cool example of how language and tone of voice can really make actual impact on what to achieve with that.
Yes, it's a great example. We also have some more. You can check it out on our website. And then we have the last question. So we have a few minutes left. So the question for both of you: what should organizations do today to stay ahead of future DEI and AI regulations? So yeah, maybe Maaike, you can continue in the AI regulations part, and Simone, you can add as well, of course.
Yeah, so if we look at AI regulations, I think it's important to stay updated, because things are moving so quickly with all the new technology that comes into play. So ruling is also adjusting as we go. I also mentioned just now that there's not too much case law there just yet, because that still needs to evolve. So that's probably also makes the actual rules evolve as well over time. Really follow an ethical AI practice. So really take consideration like, hey, how am I using AI? And is this really an ethical way? Or am I really doing something harmful in a way, or making a certain bias in a certain way, and is that intended? And I think in that sense, AI governance is becoming more and more important, so that you actually match and control how you use AI in your organization, which is not always that easy because everyone has access to ChatGPT nowadays, right? So I think it's fair to say that it's not going away, and it's also something you can say as an employer, like, yeah, no one is allowed to use it. People will use it anyways, right? If they're not using it on their business laptop, they will use their personal phone, for instance, to create some content. It's so easy. And how are you keeping track of that, right? So I'm really a believer, like Leo also said, we're really fan of AI, obviously, and we think you should really embrace it because it can really make your work more effective and efficient. But make sure that you do that in a manageable way so that you control, also check and control how your people, your teams are using it in the organization. And in that sense, it could be that you collaborate with other stakeholders that could help you with that. So you see that there's more and more audits also happening by compliancy agencies that are helping organizations to make a good use out of it. But also think about ruling and guidelines in how you write actually your text, and that people just need to commit to that. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of other organizations that can also help become compliant towards these regulations.
Great, thank you, thank you, Maya.
Yeah.
So, Simona, do you have anything to add to the DEI regulations part?
Yeah, before I start, I would look to the chat because Clemens asked which country you are referring to, or the entire Arcadis company. Maybe Mikey can answer the question before I go on.
Yeah, I can quickly answer that. So for Arcadis, they started in the Netherlands. So that was the Dutch entity, their Dutch recruitment entity that was running this project.
Okay, cool. So when we now also look at what DEI regulations have to be checked for organizations or maybe implemented, there are a lot of things that organizations should keep in mind. Maike has already said it. Of course, checking the data and also the impact maybe of your AI tool that you are using, finding data on your conversions, on your talent pools, on how many people have left the company, or many females, many males when it comes to gender, how many people have become fathers, for example. This is something you not really need to know automatically in a company, so you must collect data. And so this is the first thing that I want to look at. It is not enough to just be informed on regulations. Of course, you should train your staff regularly on the recent diversity regulations, or in Germany, for example, we just have a Selbstbestimmungsgesetz, or also maybe when it comes to language, which kind of languages, gender-specific language is allowed, which form is not allowed. Yeah, in Germany, there are, for example, some forms you're not allowed to use. In some federal states, such as Bayern or Hessen in Switzerland, we just have 2 forms that are allowed to be used, which is very small binary understanding of gender. So people have to be informed about this. So train your staff regularly on the use of diversity in language and also diversity in the organization. And when it comes to auditing, I always tell our customers to really find prototypes for texts that you use regularly. For example, if you work as a recruiter or something, you have so many job ads you need to post, you should define a style guide. And then, you can also implement the style guide in Textmetrics, and then every time your job ad is being posted, it's automatically checking if you are using your style guide, or also you are all having tone of voices or writing guidelines, stuff like this. Also, when it comes to scientific papers, because I saw that someone of our followers here in the chat was writing it. Scientific paper is also a very, very standardized text. And the more standardized a text type is, the better you can use AI on this. So this is something what, of course, needs also linguistic knowledge to see how standardized a text is. But you will get a feeling of it when you've written it sometimes. And then also, of course, you will need to get other writers of the texts. When you have co-authors or stuff like this, you all should get one tone of voice that you are writing together in it. So there's a sound like cat is in the in the webinar, but I think she isn't. So someone is exactly. Now, thank you for switching the microphone phone off. Yeah, the most important thing is really mindset. Yeah, mindset training is all about mindset. Don't be so hesitating when it comes to AI, and accept that yes, it sometimes hurts to see that we are not using inclusive styles of work or also inclusive language, and that we may discriminate people, that we always can be attentive of that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Simone. And also thank you, Mike, again. This was the end of our webinar. Here are also some QR codes for you. If you want to try Textmetrics for free, you just scan the left one. And if you want more information about the diversity company, you can check the one on the right side. There's a side note that their website is in German. But of course, feel free to send Simone an email or her team, and they can help you out as well. Thanks again, Simone and Mike. Thank you very much in the audience for all being here with us. So sorry for being a bit over time, but I hope you found it interesting. Let's be in touch and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, Leo, for hosting.
Bye-bye.